You are listening to the Total Hell Radio Show. My name is Jordan, and we have a very special guest with us, the vocalist of Dawn of Ouroboros. And oh, I already messed it up already. I've been trying to do this correct the whole time, and my brain wants to go Dawn of Aurora Borealis, but we're gonna end up having like a Superintendent Chalmers steamed hams discussion. Dawn of Ouroboros and Cailleach calling Chelsea Murphy. How's it going, Chelsea?
Good, thank you. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. When I want to kind of introduce people to some bands that they may not be familiar to, and in your case, shame on them because they should know your band, I kind of like to describe like what kind of genres they fit into or subgenres. And getting ready for the show, I was kind of having trouble doing that for your band because it's like, well, it's sort of tech death, but it's sort of progressive metal, but it's also there's some blackened metal sorts of things. So I guess how would you describe how Dawn sounds?
So I would say that we're atmospheric progressive black metal, which because we have a lot of like synth elements and nice little melodic things happening, but um we also have a lot of progressive elements. We do a lot of time signature changes and just have fun with it. So no matter what, we end up always bringing in progressive elements somehow.
And I think you could hear a lot of that on the new album Bioluminescence, coming out March 7th on Prosthetic Records. I've been lucky enough to hear the album in advance already, and I guess it kind of this question rolls into that previous one because on this record there's like even more expansive sounds than what was on Velvet Incandescence. I mean, not to scare people off, but like there's elements of like lounge in some of the songs and jazz and kind of these other complex sounds. So like, what is the writing process like for trying to have all of these different elements fit into what is still a heavy metal song?
Well, it's basically with that. I feel like the song you're most referring to is Slipping Burgundy.
Hmm.
That song was really written. I had mentioned I really want to do like a jazz lounge singer type esque thing because I really wanted to write something for David Lynch, which he passed right before this came out, so I was really bummed. But uh, his whole realm has always had there's some sort of lounge singer and like the aesthetics of the Slipping Burgundy music video very much are like an honor. It's for him, so for me, when I pitched this to the guys, I said, I would really like to do like a jazz singing intro. I think that would be a lot of fun. Originally, I didn't think it would go to the 2.5 minute mark, but it did, and I'm happy it did. I feel like it really showcases a bigger girth of our abilities. Yeah, it was an interesting process, though. We actually worked with our friend Jason Cohen to do the stand-up bass recording. Ian did play it live in the music video, though, so it was an interesting process to say the least. But overall, I feel like we each brought our own unique elements to the mix, and it just built this beautiful piece that I'm very proud of. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really a standout track from the album. It's when I was listening to it before I even saw the video for it, I had in like the back of my head the idea of you with like the stand-up microphone, like or like laying across a piano and just kind of having that kind of imagery. And I think it fits in well with what you're going for the video. Do you draw a lot from David Lynch or like other kind of out there directors or artists or creative types?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to have like your creative muses. And for me, David Lynch has been very influential on my art in general. So it was an easy pick to kind of honor him in that track. But yeah, we've definitely written other pieces that are, more influenced by pop culture or art before. This is just the one that we really zero it in on. it made it very obvious what we were doing. So
The gum you like is coming back in style when you listen to it.
yeah.
Um, w- is there any hope of maybe having Dawn's music or even imagery used in some sort of television show or movie?
Oh, I wish. Let's see, who knows, but
I
that
mean,
would be.
surely there's an A24 movie that can use, black and progressive death metal.
Oh, I right? Yeah, no, A24 is absolutely my favorite film studio. I love what they're doing, the creativity and allowing the more indie directors and teams to bring their ideas to life.
Yeah, I think they've, in the past few years, reached an audience that's been hungry for something a little different from like, well, the usual Marvel movies or remakes or whatever else that's going on. And I think that can kind of fit in with what you're doing. Like, the band does not sound like your typical death metal band or black metal band. So I think there's kind of room for creativity in different realms where like you could mesh and work well with the movie, like from A24 or something like that.
Absolutely. This is your sign, A24.
I mean, this is where it starts now. You kind of got to put it out there, like a little video on Instagram here, a little like that, and maybe match some of your stuff up with them and where they're kind of compelled to pay attention.
Yeah, manifest my reality, right? Manifesting working with A24.
So one of the things about your vocal style is that, like, it's funny to say, but you can actually sing compared to a lot of other vocalists out there. So, like, when did you realize that, like, hey, I can actually do this?
Um, let's see. Well, and I always sang, like I feel like singing for me was kind of like a coping mechanism just with everyday life and
Mhm.
everything. I just loved singing from like a very young age. And so that was always something I kind of did, but it was just for me. And when I joined, or I shouldn't even say joined, created Dawn with Tony, um, one of the things we talked about was, hey, I think, we should add some like more light singing harmonies, things like that. And I had never done that for a band before. So that was really interesting trying to find the right voice. I really don't stick with the same type of vocal singing throughout the albums ever, pretty much. There's a lot of variance across the board. But it was a process. It wasn't like a overnight, like I woke up and I was an amazing singer. um, I don't know. I just kind of tried to do vocals and it worked out somehow. Is the sad reality of it with the honest reality. How about that?
Yeah, I think you're not alone in that of, it's being a work in progress and having to figure out what works where and, what fits in with the style of music you do. And on the flip side, when did you learn that you could scream and do the gutturals and have the harsh vocals?
So I learned, let's see, when I was around 17, I tried doing some like vocal covers and I just thought, oh, I think I can do this, which sounds stupid, but I gave it a go. I was really into listening to metal throughout my, preteen and teenage years, and it just like I just felt this energy within that I just had to get out. So I gave it a go, and I was able to start in like a mid-range scream. And so I worked my way out from there. And had I had tried to do like guttural lows or, black metal shrieking highs, I don't think that I would be sitting here right now because it would have probably not gone very well. So I'm glad that I started with the mid range and built my way outwards.
Yeah, I've done vocals over the years as well, and it's sort of parallel for me. A little bit older, I started with like new metal covers and kind of learning what my range was, and then like moving on to, I think my aha moment for being able to do harsher vocals was like a Children of Bodom cover, and just, being able to hit a note or a sound like your eyes light up and you're like, oh, I could actually do this now. And I
Yeah.
think maybe like your average music or metal fan just kind of assumes you've always been able to do this, and it's like, no, this takes a lot of trial and error, and sometimes a lot of sore throats to be able to do that.
Yeah, it is an interesting process. And I feel like every album I unlock a new little skill, which is fun. You know,
You,
it's
you're
it forever,
leveling up.
yeah, forever learning for sure. It's funny how much of it is really just playing with like your tongue and your jaw and like just you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I didn't realize that's all you had to do to make this sound. Now I know.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's could even be like if I lift my chin up a little bit this way, or turn my head a little bit, it's you could actually hit a different sound. So like, do you have a warm-up routine, whether it's like for recording or going out on tour?
Oh yeah, when I'm out on tour, I usually do, which sounds silly, but I do yawns, and then I do like an audible like yelp with the yawn, and then I'll sing soul music, which sounds funny, but I do, and then I'll start with just like doing some scaling with the growling,
Mhm.
and then I'll do like maybe a quarter of a song, and then I'm like, okay, like I think I'm warmed up enough to go do what I need to do in terms of like sound check or whatever. Um, which I feel like that's something that I'll probably expand on more going forward. But historically, like my warm up's been, a 5-10 minute ordeal. So um, not too extreme.
It's funny when I've done my like vocal warm-ups, it's usually like driving to a venue or to a practice, and I'm always worried someone's gonna look over at like a stoplight and see me doing like ha ha ho, another like funny sounds and faces.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like sometimes I get bashful and I just go and do it in the van or like somewhere else where I'm like, I don't want to do this in front of people right now.
Yeah, it's funny because like you're up on stage, you're doing this for, a half hour, 45 minutes every night, and everyone's into it. But as soon as you're like off the stage or off of like that like safe area of heavy metal, you suddenly become very much aware of what you're doing and how like other people would perceive you.
Yeah, I've definitely had moments where I rise above what I'm doing and I'm like, what the fuck? How did I get here? And why am I here? But yeah, no, I'm a very different person off stage than I am on stage. On stage, you have to be like really like almost arrogant and like, just energetic and like super extroverted and whatever. And it's like, I'm a bubbly person. I have friends, but at the same time, I'm also very much the person that like hangs out at home with her cats and writes music all night and like just is a total introvert. And like touring proves to be a challenge sometimes just for the social battery, Not that I don't love everybody, it's just I am used to like spending a lot of time alone. So yeah, it's challenging at times.
Is doing vocals and doing the band like an outlet for you, like creatively and socially, to be able to do that for people when like you're at home and you don't want to?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like my social life would be pretty poor without doing music, to be honest. So I'm very fortunate that, a lot of my very close friends are all people that I create things with, which I think is is unique to a lot of people's experience in like adult friendships, right? Like you're usually not hitting the road with your friends and writing music and leveling up together. Like it's such a fun trip, and I definitely think that the the amount of value I get out of these friendships is like irreplaceable, and I'm just like forever grateful for them.
Extreme metal is bringing people together and making us better people in our own ways. And, I think if we didn't have this, we'd kind of just be shut-ins at some point or,
Oh
not
yeah.
functioning members of society. We have that outlet to go on stage and, maybe be someone who we're not for a little bit. And I think that helps maybe us grow as people and be able to do that.
Yeah, my social skills would be pretty pathetic without them. So, you know, um, it's so interesting. Like I have like my corporate. world that I work in, and
Hmm.
then like nobody really knows that I do this music on the side at all. So um, yeah, pretty different person.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat too. I don't even tell people what type of music I listen to because how do you explain some of this sort of stuff that's just in our brain all the time and just a normal person would never understand?
Oh no.
I was just listening to Dimmu Borgir or something like that. It's the most they know is, I don't know, maybe Black Sabbath. And even that, and even then, you're like, you don't want to get into it because people have like preconceptions and specific notions of like what heavy metal is.
And they're like, "Oh, you listen to that Cookie Monster crap?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes."
Yes, yes, I listen to the yelly stuff. We all bite heads off bads, I know. With Bioluminescence, is there any thematic or kind of lyrical connection with your previous album, Velvet Incandescence?
Not really. That's actually a question I've gotten a few times, but I think bioluminescence is something that really stands on its own. This album I felt like a lot more involved in the whole writing process and um, just being able to effectively express myself in a way that was under a different emotional state. Like I was a lot happier when writing this album. So there's that. Um, yeah. And there's no real like connection between the two albums. So
When it comes to writing for Dawn versus like Cailleach Calling, do you have to get into like the Dawn zone versus Cailleach Calling, or is it just I am writing for this song, I'm able to work with whatever's in front of me?
um, I think the two writing processes are very different. For Dawn, it's like there's a lot of times where I'm like I do improv a lot, but I am Cailleach Calling is a lot of improv, like 80% plus improv for me. And then Dawn of Ouroboros is a little more complex of a performance. And so I'll do improv sometimes and just keep it as is, and then other times I'll pre-write, and other times I'll just trial and error over and over again in studio until I lock in on something I really love. Um, so I think that the way I approach the two bands are very different. Cailleach Calling was really created as more of like a more up the middle black metal um, that could be less pressure, I think, and more free form.
Yeah, I could see how that makes sense. If we were doing this in person, not online, I'd give you a high five because I definitely do the improv vocal thing as well. And
Awesome.
I think it can be kind of creatively freeing to be able to just explore sounds you make and, maybe not even specific words, but just the inflections that you have from some of those words can make for a better sound than trying to like fit the same exact sound for every word and, just having to sit there in a studio and people say, "No, you did it wrong. You got to do it again." And you kind of like lose some of the heart and soul of a song.
Yeah, it's I love it. It just makes me a lot happier of a performer while I'm tracking and everything. And you tap into like this world in between where you just feel and sense how to do things. And yeah, it's somewhere that isn't really rewarded in other parts of your life, but it exists. And I think being able to tap into it's very important creative outlet.
And I think it works with how, like you said, you were feeling, I guess, happier with the recording of this album. Like you could hear it in your voice, you could hear it in your words, and how you kind of hit certain parts that it does work well with kind of maybe having more of an improv feel to it than a rigid, strict sound that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. We are I'm so lucky that, my bandmates like everybody just kind of stays in their corner and like they'll offer like insights and feedback here and there, but for the most part I just have, the creative freedom of doing as I see fit, and they all trust that what I do will actually sound okay. So, I think that's important to have that like, respect and boundaries and everything. And there's times where I'll hound Tony to change a guitar part, like, oh, you should do it more like this, and he's always a good sport about it. But for the most part, we all take responsibility for our instruments, and we trust each other. So I think that, you know, this is I love all my bandmates. I think it's rare to have a group that genuinely like loves each other as much as we love each other. So
That that's so good to hear because you hear so many bands getting into fights or creative problems or this is like a dictatorship where one person's in charge of everything and that stuff doesn't last and I think you could hear it in their songs too of just the kind of uncomfortable business-like nature whereas like with this album with your band it does sound very free and like creatively interesting.
yeah, yeah. So fortunate that way.
Now you also did vocals. You were part of what, like the choir of the damned for Doom Eternal?
Yeah, yeah, the Hell Choir. Yeah, that was a really fun experience. Probably one of the most fun experiences of my musical career thus far. So, working with Mick Gordon was a dream. He's so nice, like hyper positive Australian man, just the kindest soul, will help anybody, um, type of person. Um, I just I think it's so cool to meet somebody of his stature and to learn like about his personality and like the way he works with people and see how like much positivity he brings to the experience. Because sometimes you meet your heroes and it's like, oh, I wish I didn't meet you. So it was a really cool experience to see like how like people at the top could be kind and like it doesn't cost anything to be kind and he definitely lives that. So
That
um
always makes for a good experience even better. So how
yeah,
did you hook up with him in doing that? I mean, I seem to recall there being like an open casting call for metal
yeah.
vocalists to like send in their voices to do this.
Yeah, so I sent in like some work I had done before, which at the time like wasn't super expensive. And then I had to send in a music resume and I think that, and then just like a blurb about, I don't know, I think just like why I wanted to do it or something. I think I'm recalling that correctly. I could be wrong. But anyways, yeah, it was just an open casting call and like audition. And I submitted mine and I really didn't think I would get it. And then I woke up one morning to an email that said Doom Choir and it had two devil emojis and it was from Mick Gordon. And I was like, no fucking way. Like, this is not happening. I opened it and he was asking me to join the project. And I started crying, which is so lame, but like I was like so excited. I was overwhelmed with joy. Um, and yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I went down to Austin, Texas, and they had rented out a large amphitheater for all of us to perform out of and record because of the reverb in there was just like phenomenal, and they had set it up so that like everything was red and there was candles everywhere. So it was like you were walking into hell. Like they really set the scene for what we were trying to accomplish that day. And overall, the lineup of people that were there to perform was like beyond my dreams. Like um, Sven from Aborted was there, and James Dorton of Black Crown Initiate, and now Nia Bosqueras was there, and it just Tony from Static X. Like it's just like crazy people that I'm like, why am I in a room with you? How is this happening? So cool. And there was also throat singers. Nature from Tanger Calvary was there. Unfortunately, he passed
Hmm.
shortly after this project ended. And he was just such a cool person. I actually went horseback riding with him after the
Wow.
yeah, we got Texas barbecue. He actually lived in Texas, so we went out for a very Texas experience. Um, but yeah, that the choir altogether was just a really cool experience between doing like the doom language chants and everything, and then like we would do like wind sounds and like running and breathing heavy and stomping, like just like the the whole um, voiceover stuff for different game stuff, like the Foley work. And um, there was a lot of screaming and shrieks and like hair metal screams, like just weird stuff. Like for 8 hours, it was just us, like just going ham on trying to get this project nailed out. Gordon had like his score sitting on the table that was just like really cool to see. Um, yeah, and all of us got to go out and bond together afterwards. We went out to like a metal show in Austin after the fact. And I went out to dinner with Mick, and we ended up walking there. And it was just like a very surreal experience. One of those once in a lifetime shots where you're like, this is just, I'm going to absorb every second of this because I probably won't be fortunate enough to experience something of this caliber again. Or who knows, maybe I will. I hope so. But at the time I was very aware of how lucky I was to be there.
That sounds like a lot of fun, and like you said, one of those lifetime or once in a lifetime experiences. It almost sounds like a heavy metal vocalist fantasy camp.
It was like I fell asleep and I was having the best dream.
Is that kind of something you'd like to explore a little bit more, like the Mike Patton doing scary sounds for monsters in movies and video games?
Yeah, I mean, I think for like vocalists, it's something that is easy for us to do. It's not, well, at least I find it to be quite easy. Um, so I would love to explore more because there's a lot of projects that I think could benefit from it. And um, yeah, just overall, it's a very positive experience. Also, I think that having people that are aware of timing and like have a lot of in studio recording experience is important for those types of things. Um, I don't know about you, but the first time I went into a studio record, it was a little rough. It's like
Yeah.
it's a really different feeling and everything sounds different in your ears and like recording to a metronome, like things like that where it's like, wow, that was a learning curve.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're no longer in your friend's basement. You're staring
yeah.
at people who are staring at you, and you could see the reactions and know like, oh, I didn't hit that, or like, wow, my timing is really off and I never noticed. And you got to sit there
Yeah.
while someone goes, do it again.
It's like it feels awful the first, when you're first starting out and doing it. So I think having metal people that have experience with that is a big advantage for these gaming companies and like horror movies, whatever.
Yeah, and it's probably good for you to having gone through that experience because now you know you can hang with some of those people, not just in metal, but like the big recording musical world.
Yeah, it was it was a little bit of a confidence boost, I think I'm the type of person that like I shit on myself constantly, like
Same.
honestly, like I'm really hard on myself, and I feel like that's helped me grow
Yeah.
because I don't allow myself to get a big head about myself. But yeah, it was one of those experiences where I'm like, I guess I'm doing all right. Cool, thank you.
It's a pretty amazing experience that no one can ever take away from you. And, they were selective. I'm sure they got lots and lots of just
Oh
generic metal
yeah,
vocalists.
they there was like over 1,000 submissions or something like that in a few days, and they ended up cutting the deadline short because there was just too much. It was crazy. So I don't know how I got selected. I'm very fortunate.
So, Chelsea, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us. The new album's Bioluminescence. Is there anything you want our listeners to know about the album, the band, the upcoming West Coast tour you're doing? Anything else in the future we should know about?
Yeah. So, our West Coast tour kicks off on Friday the 7th, same day that the album releases. We'll be starting in San Francisco. That show's looking like it'll be close to sell out, if not a sellout, which I'm very excited about. Um, you can stream us everywhere, Spotify, Apple Music. We have new videos up on YouTube. You can buy our merch directly from us on Bandcamp or the Prosthetic Record store. Um, if you are in Japan, we actually have a distro deal with Spiritual Beast now. that, you can order from them and not pay $1 million for shipping. So, yeah, supporting us, helping us grow, even if it's just sharing us, like that helps us more than you could possibly imagine. And we're really hoping to cross over into new territories for touring. So, we're really aiming towards Europe and UK and Japan. That's our like top goals. So, yeah, anything you can do to help us grow over there, that would be very appreciated. So, thank you for the continued support.
The new album is Bioluminescence out on March 7th on Prosthetic Records. It is a fantastic record. I think it's really going to blow a lot of people's minds, and I'm really excited for people to hear it. So, thanks a lot for doing this, Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.